Most women don't know how to describe it, but they feel it. Like gravity, like a shift in the air. Not charm, not looks, not wealth, but something deeper. A presence. A man who walks into a room and says nothing, yet everything inside her becomes alert. The world barely notices this man, until it does, until it cannot look away. Because he has mastered something most men flee from: emotional discipline. He is no longer a slave to the fluctuations of external approval, no longer chained to the praise or punishment of others. His value is not negotiated. It simply is. And here lies the paradox that stings the hearts of those still trapped in boyhood. When a man no longer needs to be wanted, he becomes irresistible. This man has confronted the chaos within. He has walked through fire, not the fire of applause, but the quieter hell of sitting alone with his own shame, with the ghosts of father wounds, the ache of not being enough, the scars left by a world that teaches boys to harden or collapse, but never to feel and hold. He has tasted humiliation, rejection, betrayal, not as enemies to escape, but as mirrors reflecting the fragments of a self long buried. And where other men run to numb, distract, or rage, he stayed. He breathed. He owned it. You've seen him before. The man who doesn't chase, doesn't perform, doesn't explain himself. He does not raise his voice to be heard, because his silence is thunder. He no longer seeks to seduce with false identity. He does not decorate his wounds with bravado. He no longer performs masculinity. He embodies it. This isn't Stoicism as a mask for repression. This is Stoic fire, forged in the cold depths of emotional clarity. Seneca said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." The disciplined man knows this. He has trained his mind like a warrior, polishes a blade, daily, precisely, without vanity. When the world offends him, he does not react. He observes, because he knows. Most offense is a projection of unresolved inner war. He does not carry the weight of being understood, because he no longer lives for validation, especially not from those who have not paid the price to understand him. This is why he's magnetic. Because most people, including women, unconsciously seek not perfection, but containment. And only the emotionally disciplined man can offer that. Not through dominance, not through control, but through presence. He can hold the storm of another without being swallowed by it. He can witness chaos without becoming it. He can face the feminine in her full tidal range, ecstasy, rage, sorrow, and not flinch, not fix, not flee. He stands, not out of stubborn pride, but deep-rooted center, because he has done this with himself. You, yes you, were not born weak, but maybe you were taught to betray yourself early, to smile when your heart screamed, to laugh when you wanted to cry, to please when your soul longed to say no. Emotional discipline is not about suppressing the storm. It is the art of commanding your vessel through it. It is the union of the Stoic's stillness and the warrior's fire. This man no longer lets his inner child drive the chariot of his life. That child still lives within him, but now rests in the arms of a calm, present, watchful adult. This man is rare, and that is why he draws others like gravity. He is not always the loudest, not always the most obvious, but when a woman meets him, she feels it in her bones, a deep exhale, a forgotten safety, not because he completes her, but because he does not need her. And that, paradoxically, is what makes her feel chosen rather than claimed. To be with such a man is to be invited into a sanctuary, not a performance. He does not beg for attention. He commands it by the sheer intensity of his inner stillness. That intensity is not aggression, it is presence. And presence, in a world addicted to distraction, is nothing short of revolutionary. A man like this does not arrive by accident. He is the result of many small deaths, of illusions, of ego, of comfort. The emotionally disciplined man has buried many versions of himself. The boy who begged to be chosen, the adolescent who lied to seem impressive, the young man who confused lust for love and attention for worth. Each one was an echo of the same root wound. Am I enough? And each time he was abandoned, betrayed, dismissed, he was given another sacred opportunity to confront that question not through fantasy, but through fire. The undisciplined man avoids the fire. He clings to identity like armor, defensive, performative, breakable. He reacts when insulted. He panics when she pulls away. He drowns when the world no longer gives him what he once received from manipulation or charm. But the disciplined man welcomes the silence. He does not fear the absence of applause. Because he has found a deeper music, one that plays in the quiet chambers of the soul when all external sound has ceased. Modern psychology calls this emotional regulation. The Stoics called it ataraxia, inner stillness, unshaken by fortune or fate. But it is more than that. It is a rewiring, a reclamation, a return. Because this man has seen what lies behind the performance. He has seen the wounded child in the powerful CEO, the terrified boy behind the seductive Casanova, the anxious, shame-soaked heart behind the alpha mask. And so he does not judge. He understands. But he no longer participates. Because emotional discipline isn't just about withholding reaction. It is the sacred act of not abandoning oneself when things become unbearable. He holds, he feels, he breathes, and through that breath, he transmits something ancient, something primal, yet refined. The energy of a man who can contain. To contain is not to control. It is to offer a structure that others can relax into. A woman, no matter how wild or free, senses this immediately. She tests, not consciously, but through instinct. She wants to know, can you hold me without losing yourself? Most men fail this test, not because they are weak, but because they are untrained. They collapse into her emotions, trying to fix them. Or they wall off completely, confusing numbness for strength. But the emotionally disciplined man allows without absorbing. He reflects without reacting. Like a mountain, he does not chase the wind. He does not fear the storm. He simply is. This stillness doesn't come from passivity. It is earned. Earned in the early mornings, when he sat with his rage rather than unleashing it. Earned in the lonely nights when he refused to text out of desperation. Earned in the moments when no one was watching, and he chose growth over gratification. This man doesn't manipulate. He doesn't seduce. He reveals. Because he has made peace with the parts of himself that used to scare him. The shadow no longer drives the car. It rides in the back seat, acknowledged, but not obeyed. And here is the great irony. The more a man does this work for himself, the more others begin to orbit him. Not because he needs them, but because his very lack of need becomes intoxicating. You feel it, don't you? That pull toward those who do not ask for your approval, those who do not bend to be liked, those who are not performing for your attention, but simply standing in their truth. It's because authenticity magnetizes, not in volume, but in resonance. And emotional discipline is the path to that resonance. It filters the noise, it strips the ego, it reveals the essence. Most men never touch it because it requires them to die to parts of themselves they've clung to for survival. But those who do, those few who walk this road, they do not just attract women, they awaken them. Not with promises, but with presence. He becomes the mirror, not the kind that flatters or distorts, but the kind that reflects truth, raw, clean, unfiltered. And in his presence, others feel themselves more clearly. This is why people either draw near to him or recoil. Because the emotionally disciplined man forces no reaction, yet he awakens all. He does not entertain the superficial. His gaze is not on your mask. It goes deeper. He sees the fractures in your armor, not to exploit, but to witness. This witnessing is power. It disarms the manipulative. It humbles the prideful. It elevates the honest. Because you cannot perform around him. You will either rise to meet his presence, or you will run. He is the calm eye in the storm of modern chaos, where dopamine addiction poses as confidence, where sexual conquest masquerades as intimacy, where loud declarations replace quiet knowing. He does not compete in this carnival. He simply walks through it, unmoved. And because he walks differently, the world can't help but turn. Not toward his clothes, not toward his wallet, but toward his energy. It is not alpha. It is not sigma. It is not any of the brittle labels boys cling to. It is integrated masculinity, whole, rooted, sovereign. This is the man who makes women ache without a word, because their bodies feel it before their minds can name it. He does not need her to be okay with himself. And yet, he is open, available, present, not to take, but to see. He will not chase her. But if she dares step into his world, she will feel something she has perhaps never known before. Not obsession, but clarity. Not possessiveness, but reverence. And this clarity, it terrifies the unprepared. Because there's no game left to play, no push and pull, no test of how far she can bend him. He won't bend. Not out of defiance, but because he has boundaries born of self-respect, not strategy. The emotionally disciplined man has met his own emptiness, and rather than filling it with temporary pleasures, he sat in it. He stared into the void and found his own name echoing back. He emerged not more clever, but more whole. Most men look outward when they're in pain. They search for a woman to soothe them, a job to validate them, a substance to numb them. But this man turned inward, and in that descent into the underworld, he retrieved the golden thread of his own soul. Now, he walks with something few can describe, but many can feel: gravity. He no longer leaks energy through worry, resentment, or fear. He no longer spills his masculine essence to gain favor. He is sealed, not closed, not cold, but contained. And in a world that worships overexposure, this containment is sacred. You might think he's withholding, but no, he's curating. His silence is not emptiness. It is a cathedral. Step into it, and you will either elevate or flee. Because his presence confronts your deepest question. Can you hold yourself the way he holds himself? Most cannot. But the few who can, especially women, feel a deep cellular peace around him. They do not have to perform. They do not have to fix him. They do not have to mother him. They can simply be. And in being, they feel safe. Not coddled, not indulged, but seen. This is why he is magnetic. Because he is no longer grasping. He allows. He reveals. He lets go. And so life comes to him. Not because he demands it, but because he has stopped chasing it. Most men will never understand this power. Because it cannot be bought, borrowed, or mimicked. It must be earned, in silence, in solitude, in suffering. This is not the path of self-help. It is the path of self-confrontation. It begins when a man stops asking, "How do I get her?" and starts asking, "Why do I abandon myself when she leaves?" The emotionally disciplined man knows this moment well. He remembers the ache of the unanswered message, the echoing silence after vulnerability. He remembers the cold withdrawal of affection, the subtle punishment for being too much or not enough. And he remembers what followed, the anxious spiral, the need to fix, to explain, to win her back. But eventually the question shifted. Not why did she do that, but why did it shatter me? This question opens the door to shadow work, to the unmasking of all the roles he inherited but never questioned, the pleaser, the performer, the protector, whose own needs are forbidden. He descended into the basement of his psyche and found the real culprit. Not her, not them, but the deep, unspoken belief that he is only worthy when he is chosen. And so he chose himself, not with arrogance, but with reverence. That is the moment a boy becomes a man, not when he conquers women, but when he refuses to conquer himself to be loved. He no longer splits into fragments to fit into someone else's mold. He does not make himself small so others can feel tall. He does not betray truth for comfort. He has traded performative masculinity for authentic integrity, and this integrity vibrates like a tuning fork. It repels the unhealed. It attracts the aligned. It awakens the asleep. Because the emotionally disciplined man is not trying to get the feminine. He honors it. He makes space for it. And most powerfully, he refuses to collapse in front of it. This refusal is not cruelty. It is clarity. He knows the temptation to shape-shift. He remembers the urge to become whatever would make her stay, but he also remembers what that cost him, his center, his voice, his soul. So now, he doesn't move from fear. He moves from alignment. If she pulls away, he breathes. If she tests, he listens. If she leaves, he lets her. Because he is no longer negotiating his worth on someone else's whim. This is why women feel safe around him. Not because he promises to stay, but because he promises to stay true. He does not make love with his body alone. He makes love with his presence, with the way he holds her emotions without recoil, with the way he kisses her pain without judgment, with the way he meets her chaos without control. She is drawn not to what he gives her, but to what he reveals in her, her softness, her fire, her longing to relax into someone who does not need to be convinced, because he is already full, not from ego, but from essence. And when a man is full, he gives from overflow, not from hunger. This is the most attractive thing of all. He does not say, "Choose me." He says with every breath, "I choose myself." And in that choosing, he creates the space for real love. Not codependence, not performance, but sovereign union. This man cannot be seduced with games. He cannot be manipulated with silence. He cannot be moved by drama, because he has been through worse within himself. He has made peace with his inner storm. And so, no woman can bring a hurricane he hasn't already weathered. This is emotional discipline, not a performance, not a trick, a way of being. A man like this becomes a sanctuary, not because he promises peace, but because he embodies it. His presence is the still water in which others finally see their own reflection clearly, without distortion, without judgment. But do not mistake him for tame. His stillness is not weakness. It is the restraint of one who has battled his own rage and come out the other side with fire in his eyes and mercy in his hands. He knows what he is capable of, and that is why he does not need to prove it. He has tamed the shadow, not by exiling it, but by integrating it. He has faced the part of him that wanted to dominate, the part that lashed out when he felt small, the part that sought conquest to mask insecurity, and he did not destroy it. He understood it. Because a man who tries to kill his shadow becomes possessed by it, but a man who befriends his shadow becomes whole, and wholeness is rare, because it cannot be bought, borrowed, or taught. It must be earned in the trenches of heartbreak, in the mirror of failure, in the furnace of radical self-honesty. This is why he cannot be controlled. You cannot shame a man who has already sat with his shame. You cannot guilt a man who has already forgiven himself. You cannot tempt a man who no longer trades authenticity for affection. He walks with a quiet power that needs no applause. He is not addicted to being seen. He is addicted to seeing clearly. And so he sees you fully. Not the mask, not the seduction, but the soul beneath it. This is the man women cry over without knowing why, because in his presence they feel the parts of themselves they thought were too much, too wild, too messy, finally welcomed. He does not flinch when she reveals her shadow. He does not retreat when she shows her depth, because he has made space for his own. And so, around him, others soften, not because he demands it, but because his energy makes safety inevitable. This safety is not about comfort. It is about truth. And truth, real truth, is the most magnetic force in the world. It is not loud. It is not desperate. It is. The emotionally disciplined man is. He does not become someone new for every situation. He remains, rooted in his values, unshaken by the winds of opinion, unafraid of solitude because he no longer fears the company of himself. This man understands that attraction is not created, it is revealed through presence, through clarity, through unshakable embodiment. He no longer wears his pain as armor. He wears it as wisdom. He no longer seeks to be worshipped. He seeks to serve, not from martyrdom, but from abundance. Because when a man truly knows who he is, he no longer asks the world to remind him. And in that space, he becomes rare, valuable, magnetic. He moves slowly, deliberately, not to impress, but because he is no longer in a race he never agreed to run. And the world notices. Women notice. They may not understand it, but they feel it in the way he listens without rushing to respond, in the way his eyes do not wander, in the way he chooses solitude over shallow connection. He is not proving his worth. He is protecting it, because he knows what it took to find it, and he will not trade it for fleeting pleasure. He is not for everyone, but for the few who can meet him where he is. He becomes unforgettable. There is a sacred violence to his peace, not the kind that harms, but the kind that destroys illusions. Because the emotionally disciplined man is a mirror to all the places in others still ruled by fear, chaos, and need. And to stand before such a man is to confront the truth. No one is coming to save you. No woman, no status, no achievement. There is only you, your breath, your choices, your discipline. He learned this not in books, not from podcasts, not from gurus, but in silence, in the aching solitude after being misunderstood, in the stillness that follows rejection, when there is no distraction left and only raw, pulsing presence remains. It is here the boy dies and the man begins. Not the man who dominates, not the man who obeys, but the man who knows that suffering is not the enemy. Unconscious suffering is. That pain is inevitable, but being defined by it is optional. So he no longer fights his emotions. He channels them. Anger becomes action. Fear becomes focus. Desire becomes direction. There is nothing casual about him. Even his silence feels deliberate. Even his presence feels earned. And this earned presence carries weight, not heaviness, but gravity. You feel it in the way he takes up space without trying, in the way others defer to him without knowing why, in the way women pause because something in them remembers what it feels like to be in the presence of a man who cannot be moved by games or trends or tests, because he has nothing to prove, and that nothing is everything. This man is dangerous to the ego. He will not react the way others do. He will not spiral when ignored. He will not perform for praise, and that absence of need creates power. Not the counterfeit power of control, but the sacred power of containment. To be in his orbit is to feel something primal stir within you, the longing to soften, the desire to surrender, not in defeat, but in safety. Not because he demands it, but because his very being permits it. This is not about dominance. This is about energetic leadership. He leads not with commands, but with coherence. Because his inner world is aligned, his outer world bends around him. There is a moment, a quiet, devastating moment, when a woman realizes she cannot manipulate this man. That her beauty, her withdrawal, her moods bounce off his field like waves against rock. And in that moment, she feels something she may not have felt since childhood. The longing to trust, not to control, not to be adored, but to relax. And she may resist it, because most have never met such a man who does not need her chaos to feel alive, a man who does not dance for approval, a man who does not beg to be seen. Instead, he sees her, sees beyond the mask, beyond the flirtation, beyond the defense. And he says nothing, he just remains, steady, calm, present, because her storm does not scare him. It invites him, not to fix, but to witness, not to soothe, but to contain. And when the storm passes, when the tears dry, when the laughter fades, she looks at him and understands. This is a man she cannot play with. This is a man she cannot seduce from his center, because this is a man who has mastered the most dangerous art of all. He belongs to himself, and that changes everything, because a man who belongs to himself cannot be possessed. He cannot be coerced or broken or bought. He does not need permission to speak his truth. He does not ask for validation before he breathes. This man moves through life like a slow-burning flame, not erratic, not explosive, but eternal. He speaks when there is purpose. He acts when there is clarity. He stays when it is right, and he walks away without fear, not because he is cold, but because he has boundaries rooted in soul, not survival. And the world aches for such men, because they remind us of what we've forgotten, that it is not intensity that builds safety, but consistency. That emotional chaos does not equal passion, that the deepest love is not a fire that consumes, but a hearth that warms. He has no interest in being worshipped, and this is why others adore him. He has no interest in being needed, and this is why others feel safe around him. He has transcended the hunger for control. He has surrendered the addiction to attention. He no longer needs to be chosen, because he has chosen himself again and again. In the lonely hours, in the honest reflections, in the discipline of presence, he is not flawless, but he is whole. He is not always gentle, but he is always anchored. He will not tolerate chaos, that refuses to be owned. He will not offer his life to anyone unwilling to meet themselves first, because he knows what it took to build this inner fortress, and he will not tear it down for momentary pleasure. This man is rare, not because he is better, but because he is real. His power is not in how many desire him. His power is in how little he needs to be desired. He gives because he chooses to, not because he needs to be needed. He holds space not to be loved, but because love lives within him already. He touches not to conquer, but to remind her of her own depth, her own beauty, her own power. He is not here to complete anyone. He is here to walk beside the complete, and together they rise. This is the man who doesn't chase. He builds. He deepens. He waits, not from passivity, but from sovereignty, because what is his cannot miss him, and what misses him was never meant to be held. He does not move with urgency. He moves with clarity, because emotional discipline is not a prison. It is freedom. Freedom from the need to be liked. Freedom from the compulsion to please. Freedom from the shame that once said, "You are not enough." He has met that shame, held it, listened to it, and then he outgrew it. And so now, he walks not as a man seeking, but as a man offering, not his body, not his wealth, not his charm, but his presence, his groundedness, his unwavering self-respect. And when she meets him, truly meets him, she knows, this is not the kind of man you catch. This is the kind of man you rise to meet, because he is not looking for attention. He is looking for resonance. And when he finds it, he does not rush to possess it. He tends to it. He honors it. He lets it breathe. Because he understands